with this double encryption thing, I had to get my phone to get the second, code that I needed. We're all set. Go ahead.
Okay, Joanne, thank you, and welcome everyone to the September 18th, 2024 meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission. We'll open this evening with the roll call. Mr. Chiocchio?
Here.
Ms. Hofstetter?
Here.
Mr. Sylvain?
Here.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
And Chairman Finaldi is here. We do not have any alternates at the present time, and we do not need to seat any alternates, luckily, because we don't have any. So thank you. I will read the standard Zoom intro. This meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission is being held on Zoom as a virtual meeting. Even though this meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public and interested parties continue to have the opportunity to participate in the meeting in a couple of different ways. You can participate via Zoom and see the audio and the video, or you can call in by phone and participate via audio only. Please be aware that we may have to mute your microphone or telephone to avoid an echo or some other background noise. Instructions on how to participate in the meeting appear on the City of Danbury website, and all of the documents and materials that apply to the matters to be discussed during this meeting, including the agenda, are also available on the City of Danbury website. As always, if you have any questions regarding on how to participate in the meeting, please contact the City of Danbury Planning and Zoning Department. As a reminder, the entire meeting will be posted on and can be seen on the City of Danbury website. We will follow the posted agenda as per standard practice. If prior to the meeting, any questions or comments on agenda items were submitted via email to the Planning and Zoning Department, those comments will be read during the appropriate portion of the meeting. Finally, please be aware that technology glitches do sometimes occur. Please be patient if that happens. Let the record show, Commission members, let's go right to, the acceptance of the minutes. Those minutes have been distributed to commission members rather. If there's no comments, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The minutes of the September 4th meeting are accepted.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, there's somebody named Eddie with their hand up. I don't know what they want, if you want to see.
Well, let's...
Okay.
Just a mistake.
Oh, it was a mistake. Okay.
Okay, I'll fix it.
No problem. Let the record show the next regular meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission will be held on October 3rd, 2024. Now, Commission members, with that said, we have to rearrange our agenda this evening, unfortunately. Just by way of background, for people that don't know, for the last, God knows how long, decades, we've always started these meetings at 7:30. We recently changed to 7, and we're still sort of sorting that out. The legal notice that was published for the only public hearing we have this evening indicated that the public hearing will commence at 7:30 p.m. like we used to. So legally, we cannot start that public hearing until 7:30 as per the date and time it was posted. So what we're going to do, of course, I need a motion for this, by the way, is I'd like to move the agenda around slightly. What we can do, Commission members, if it's okay, is move referrals to the first item on the agenda, move those ahead of public hearings. We'll let staff address the commission on those two. Well, there's two referrals. One's an 8.3a, one's an 8.2.4. We'll get those out of the way. And then we'll have to wait till 7:30 to start the public hearing on 3775. There may be a pause. We might have to take a brief recess till 7:30, depending on how long it takes us to get through the referrals. But unfortunately, we have to do it that way. We can't start the public hearing until 7:30. Anyone have any questions on that? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to move referrals to the first item on our agenda before public hearings, and then the agenda can flow from there. Everyone got that? Does everyone understand what happened here?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Yes. Thank you, Perry. Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so again, we're gonna do our referrals first, and then the agenda as posted will flow in order from there. Okay. Referrals, item 1, 83A referral, petition of JM Zell Partners LLC, Danbury P LLC to amend section 73A1E and add section 7C3A4 of the zoning regulations. Limit the prohibition on auto repair for a previously approved site located within the public water supply watershed district, and the zoning commission public hearing is scheduled for September 24th, 2024. The petition and the planning department staff report were distributed. Hopefully everybody had a chance to look at that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer for discussion. Jen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Jennifer Eminger, Deputy Planning Director. So as Arnie just read into the record, you have a petition that was submitted by Attorney Neil Marcus on behalf of JM Zell Partners LLC to amend section 7C3A1 and then add a new section 7C3A4. And this would allow auto repair in the Class 1 and Class 2 Lake Kenosha watershed areas. So this petition, by amending little e, is what I'm calling it, little e, by adding an additional referencing section to number 4, this proposes to allow auto repair to the service area of a licensed new car dealership. Right now, as a little background, right now, auto repair is prohibited in both watersheds, in the Class 1 and the Class 2. The proposed text requires that all, and this is the text that Attorney Marcus submitted with his petition. The proposed text requires that all repair and maintenance activities are confined within a service area certified by an LEP to contain hazardous fluids and or materials within the building structure in a manner that will not leak or escape from the building structure and impact the site with any potential environmental spills. Again, this is Attorney Marcus's text. And the reasons for that petition, for the reasons why he submitted that petition, were submitted with his application. And I feel like the Planning Commission knows the watershed regs because you deal with it through the special exception reviews. But as a refresher, so we have the zoning regulations has an overlay zone, regulates, restricts land use activities within the watershed areas. And again, there's 2 classifications. There's the Class 1 and then the Class 2 Lake Kenosha. So Class 2 clearly is Lake Kenosha area. Class 1 is all others. That includes Marjorie Reservoir, Westlake Reservoir. There's some aquarium properties. There's some properties that border New York State that we protect. Eureka Reservoir. So these are areas throughout the city that are protected. Those are Class 1 areas. And there's 14 of those designated areas. And again, the Class 2, clearly it's within the general vicinity of Lake Kenosha. They also have within the Class 1 and Class 2 classifications, environmentally sensitive area designations. And this is based off of a definition. It's what we call an ESA. So you could be Class 2 ESA, which means you're going to have wetlands on the property. It directly drains to a reservoir. It's got steep slopes and it's got bedrock, wetlands, water courses. That's an environmentally sensitive area. So there's further restrictions. And again, Section 7C3A currently prohibits auto repair uses within both the Class 1 and Class 2. And we also have, and you know this because you're the governing body, we have one aquifer protection area, which is located around the Lake Kenosha wellhead. I think there's several wellheads actually. Aquifer protection areas are designated by the state for active public drinking water, well fields, and sand and gravel aquifers that serve more than 1,000 people. And that's a designation through the state of Connecticut. So my comments, there's quite a few. So the department doesn't necessarily object. However, actually, that's not true. I do object as written. I don't think it will protect the watershed. And again, this petition, it affects both class 1 and class 2. It's not specific. And I think the issue, the zoning commission adopted the watershed regs several decades ago. We haven't seen an update. And during that time, we've seen significant permit requirements handed down through DEEP, which is the Department of Energy and Environmental Protections. And they have regulatory processes that require permits for wastewater discharges. Again, back when the watershed regs were written, these didn't exist. They exist today. So there's further regulations that protect the environment. That state permit provides processes pertaining to vehicle maintenance wastewater with required discharges to an oil grit separator, then to either the sanitary sewer or an on-site holding tank. That's required today, outside of our process. That's a DEEP requirement. Those provisions provide protections that prevent auto repair facilities from direct discharges that impact the groundwater supply. Back in the day, the older auto repair facilities, auto body, and we have a few of them on Mill Plain, which is within the class 2 Lake Kenosha watershed. Those protections didn't exist. So at that time, you know, the mom and pop type auto repair facilities didn't have those types of precautions set in place. It's different today. It just is. So the department agrees with the applicant in that auto repair facilities, specifically those that are part of a full service new car dealership, have evolved to incorporate these modern technologies. In addition to the DEEP requirements, they do provide improved environmental controls and protections to the water supply and the watershed. However, the text as written has wide applicability, both across both watersheds, again, class 1, class 2, and fails to sufficiently provide provisions and restrictions necessary to protect the watersheds. We're not opposed per se. However, significant restrictions and prohibitions are warranted to ensure the necessary protections are in place. So I sat down with our environmental compliance officer in the health department, and the health department, through the zoning regulations, they're our designee for the watershed review. Excuse me, I sat down with him and we came up with a list, which is what you see in the staff report. I think all of these additional restrictions, prohibitions, will provide the necessary precautions that I think would ultimately protect the watershed. Those include, hold on, I need to get a drink of water. Again, we want to see those certifications prepared by a civil engineer, not an LEP. We would like to see this limited to the class 2 only. Again, class 2 is the Lake Kenosha. And this is where you're going to see Mill Plain Road, CA 80 zone. That next bullet, again, the minimum lot area shall be 3 acres and be located in the CA 80 zoning district. The reasoning behind this, when you're coming in with a new car dealership, you're going to need that additional acreage. We don't want them on the smaller lots. We want them on the bigger lots where you can have those controls in place. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hold on. Can you just give me a second? I'm
Please
sorry.
take your time, Jen. Take your time, please.
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries.
Again, I think adding the acreage, and the limitation to the CA 80, it just provides those additional restrictions and keeps it in an area that's developed and, large enough to handle the additional stormwater controls as well as those environmental protections we're talking about. It has to be a new car dealership. This was Neil's language. I just reformatted it so it was consistent with the zoning regulations. All activities related to auto repair servicing, including detailing and washing, shall occur within the primary building. Again, we don't want this in a separate building. We don't want it outside. We want everything to happen within the building, with additional restrictions that you cannot be located within 100 feet of a wetland watercourse that then drains into a reservoir. Again, further protections. On-site storage of fuel prohibited, auto body repair still prohibited. That's currently a prohibited use. We want to see that continued. Loading areas and loading docks shall be covered. Again, when you're offloading materials as well as the cars, we want that covered because again, we don't want anything suspicious leaking from the cars or again, they're getting washed or detailed. We want that all happening inside. Those covers will provide additional restrictions and we won't see that runoff happening into the groundwater. The applicant shall obtain necessary permits from DEEP. There's a specific permit, it's a general permit for discharges. We kept it this language. Again, I think it's going to cover any and all permits that DEEP will require for wastewater discharges. All repair, loading areas, docks, and washing detail activities shall have floor drains that discharge to a properly designed and sized oil grit separator that directly discharges to the sanitary sewer. Again, we're just making sure this is a requirement. DEEP requires this, but we want to see it through the site plan process. Everything drains to a floor drain, goes to an oil grit separator that separates it, and then it discharges to the sanitary sewer. The containment vessel, this was language that I developed with our environmental compliance officer. Hooded catch basins, again, a further protection. And again, submission of spill prevention plans, a waste management plan. Excuse me. Again, these are critical to protecting the watershed and provides the restrictions for an auto repair use. Again, it's prohibited. We want to make sure if we're going to allow it, that we're getting all of these restrictions. I had forwarded a copy of my suggestions to Attorney Marcus. He's told me in writing that he does not object and he would be incorporating these into a petition before the zoning commission. With respect to the POCD, again, the goal, the POCD, is to ensure that the city's environmental resources are adequately protected. As written, this does not do that. However, when you incorporate these recommendations that I've provided, I think it will provide those additional precautions. So again, in conclusion, I feel I think that the industry has evolved And again, when you require a new car dealership, the brand requires more. So you look at Mercedes, Mazda, Subaru, these are new car dealerships. They have their own set of requirements. And then you look at what we're requiring and what the state's requiring. I think that's gonna be enough to provide those protections. So with that, I'll answer any questions. And I apologize, my voice is just, I'm
It's okay.
struggling with the need for more water, so I apologize.
No problem, Jen. Take a break. Well, first of all, thank you for a very, very thorough and detailed report. And this is an excellent report. And again, we're talking about protecting, environmentally sensitive areas, watershed areas. So you have no choice but to be very thorough and very detailed. So thank you for that. I just had two things. On the comments, under your second paragraph under your comments, it mentions the watershed regulations were adopted by the Zoning Commission several decades ago, and since that time, the state of Connecticut, DEEP, has instituted a regulatory process that requires a permit for wastewater discharges. So it sounds like the zoning regs approved the old watershed regulations. Is there any necessity, maybe at the same time this application goes to zoning, to approve the new DEEP regulations? Is that necessary, or does approval of the old ones several decades ago imply that we go along with whatever they changed? Am I wording that correctly? Do you see where I'm going with this?
I do. I feel like, and this is a discussion that I've had with the new planning director. The watershed regulations do need to be updated to reflect these newer technologies, newer permit requirements. Right now, as written, we would have to add a whole new section to accommodate such a requirement. At a minimum, we want to add it to this one section. But by virtue, the state requires it. It's already a requirement.
Okay. Okay.
So by us not having it in the regulations doesn't mean it's not required. It's
Got
just,
you. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I just wanted to confirm, that these 15 additional bullet points that you put together with various people really kind of make this a much more thorough application. So essentially, the application as submitted was incomplete and lacking certain things, but you're confident that the 15 bullet points make it a better application, and the petitioner rather, Attorney Marcus, has agreed to the 15 bullet points. Is that correct?
that is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else have any questions for Jennifer on this referral?
Mr. Chairman, excuse me if I may. Looking at the comments, comment 2 says limit to class 2 only. And so I'm trying to get my, head around like exactly what are we limiting here? So do I assume that the petition itself is only gonna actually change class 2? Class 2 what? Class 2 watershed area, class 2 Lake Kenosha watershed areas only, and the rest of it stays the way it was?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, please.
So right now, the way the petition reads, auto repair would be permitted as a new car dealership in class 1 and class 2. Most of, if not all of the class 2 watersheds are in areas that are usually zoned RA, our residential zones. We're not likely going to see a new car dealership in those zones. So why not provide that extra restriction and say class 2 only? So right now you can't do auto repair. So with this added restriction, you could only do the repair with a dealership in a class 2. Does that make sense?
I think so. Just tell me what happens to class one.
Class one stays the same.
Okay,
There's no changes to class one.
okay. So there's added restrictions for class two, over and above what we have existing.
Just for auto repair.
Just for auto repair. All right, thank you. Then. Yeah,
Because
Thank
again, we prohibit, auto repair is prohibited across both class one and class two. This petition would allow them, with the amendments that I suggested, would allow them with additional restrictions in only the class two.
yeah, that's, okay, that's what I want to make clear. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
Thank you. And I apologize if I didn't make that clear earlier.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to get the clarification. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jennifer at this time, commission members? Everybody okay? Mr. Kyokyo, go ahead.
And if it's further restricted by, it has to be in the CA 80 zone as well, right?
Correct.
Oh,
There's
oh,
that. Yeah.
Yes.
that's
Okay.
So
even
again,
better.
there's further restrictions. So
Yeah,
yeah, the way it was written, it was just too open-ended, too broad. We wanted to be able to fine tune this and really narrow it down to, again, 3 acres in class 2 only and in the CA 80. Because again, you can do auto repair in the IL zone, and we do have some IL zones in the class 2. I don't think in the class 1, but definitely in the class 2. So, you know, if again, I'm taking baby steps with this. You know, we don't generally change the watershed. So to make this change, you know, we're taking baby steps. And if we find that this is working, then, you know, maybe we say allowed in the CA 80 and the IL 40. But I think right now, taking that small step and just restricting it to CA 80.
Mr. Chairman, I had one more question, if you don't mind.
Helen, please.
When it comes to enforcement of all these regulations, I know a lot of them are going to be built into the infrastructure, you know, so that's a good thing. But in terms of a management plan, I think you even mentioned a management plan here. So yeah. So in terms of enforcing, is there what's in place in enforcement that says, you know, inspections, for example? I mean, are they yearly or, you know, I guess I'm just looking because we're talking dangerous chemicals here.
Yeah, and I think through the spill prevention plan, the waste management plan, those are approved as part of the site plan application. So, you know, if they have if they have a schedule for maintenance, then they're bound by that. You know, we don't go out and do inspections and double check to make sure they're complete. However, with their state permit, they would be required to comply with that state permit.
Okay, so we're covered there. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Again, and it's part of the site plan approval. So if they say they're to be maintained every year, then that's what they're required to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one last question, sorry.
Sure, Bob, go ahead.
So Jen, this, if zoning approves this, they won't come back to the planning commission, right? Because it's an allowed use in the CA 80, it's not a special exception. So once zoning approves, if they approve this change, then we won't see this again. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, although the new dealership, they might end up being a trip generator, so it may end up coming back to the planning commission. And this is
Okay.
an old, actually, that raises a good question. I think it's an old special exception when it was Weeks Automotive, which was a used car dealership, and there's a restriction that says they can't do any auto repair. So, you know, if for this specific instance, for the reason the petition is coming in, it actually might end up having to go back to the planning commission. However, any use on its own, you know, it's considered auto sales, which is a permitted use. So it's not clear. It really depends on the trip generation, if it would come to the commission.
Yep, got it. Okay, thank you.
But this is a text amendment to the zoning regs.
Correct.
That's what this is. So this
Yes.
gets baked into the zoning regs. If it comes back, it's a traffic issue. It's a trip generator. It's got nothing to do
Yes.
with this.
Yep, yep, got it.
Anything else for Jennifer, commission members? If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion for either a positive or negative referral to the zoning commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for a positive referral subject to all of Jen's specific requirements and changes outlined in the staff report.
Motion made for a positive referral. Do I hear a second?
Oh, and that it complies with the POCD.
Yes, we'll bake that in.
Thank you.
Second,
Second by Ms. Hofstadter. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of a positive referral, please say aye.
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 Opposed? This matter gets a positive referral. Thank you again, Jen, for a very thorough report.
Thank you.
We'll go to an 824 referral. September City Council Agenda Item number 4, request for renewal of previously approved water and sewer extensions for parcels on Great Plain and Great Meadow Roads. Jennifer.
Mr. Chairman, so you've seen these requests before. This is a request for sewer water extension renewal. You've seen these, the original was approved July 14th with conditions that were subject to density restrictions. We just want to make sure those same conditions are carried through in your recommendation. And those are outlined in my report. I will not go through them. Staff has no objection. Again, just making sure that the same density restrictions are included in the motion, and compliance with the zoning regs, and all public works engineering requirements for the mains and extensions. Staff has no objection.
Everyone got that?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
one question. Are there any limits on the extensions on this, or is that just we just keep going forever as long as we approve
Well,
it?
and that's a discussion. I've actually had that discussion with Antonio Idarola, Director of Public Works. I'm not quite sure of his position. I had to turn this over pretty quickly from the city council agenda. I was not able to speak to him. There isn't anything on the books that has a restriction. But if it's, they could decide that things have changed out there and they just, don't want to grant the renewal. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Again, I wasn't able to fully have that discussion with Antonio. From our point of view, there's no reason not to support the renewal unless, again, city council decides otherwise.
So the city council makes the decision. This is a referral. So from a planning and zoning perspective, we're extending something we did previously, but the city council can decide whether or not this should go forward. Okay.
Correct. And again, they would seek input from
Right.
the Director of Public Works.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jen on this second referral on this? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for either a positive or negative referral on this matter. Mr. Keough, Ms. Hofstadter, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a positive referral and approve a positive referral.
Thank you, Helen. Is there a second?
Second?
Second, Mr. Sylvain. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of a positive referral, please say aye.
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 Opposed. This matter gets a positive referral. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And thanks to everyone for being flexible on the agenda. We are going to resume the agenda, and we're going to go right to the public hearing section of our agenda. And I'll read the legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission of the City of Danbury will hold a public hearing commencing at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, September 18th, 2024, in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom to consider the following matter. 3775 LLC. Application for special exception site plan approval for nine home cluster development, section 4A6 in the RA20 zone, 1-3 an unnumbered lot, Pembroke Road, G08029, G08030, and G08098, special exception number 800. A copy of this application is on file in the Planning and Zoning Office for public inspection. Parties and interested citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard at this time. Agenda to be posted will include instructions on how to access the Zoom meeting and application materials and view the meeting in real time on YouTube. Arnold E. Finaldi, Jr., Chairman. Posted on city website and town clerk's office on September 4th, 2024. Published in News Times on September 6th, September 13th, 2024. Purchase order number 2025-503. With that said, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? Mr. Dodo.
Yes, good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Benjamin Dodo, licensed professional engineer with an office at 36 Mill Plain. I'm here representing the applicant tonight, 3775 LLC. The owner of the applicant, the owner of the property, Ed Killian, is also with us tonight. Attorney Marcus had a conflict, so he told me to make the presentation tonight, at least start it. So I'll do that. Also with us tonight is Ray Gennaro. He's with Down to Earth Consulting. He's our geotechnical engineer that we're using on this project. So I'm going to start with the presentation, go over the site, go over some of the civil issues and comments, and then I'm going to turn over, because some of the comments from the staff report are related directly to the geotech, and I'll let Ray take it over then. We also have a landscape architect on this project who did the plans, Dean Pushlar. He's not here tonight. He really doesn't need to be. I can handle any comments related to that. And I've also already had some communications with Allie with respect to that. So for those of you that are aware of the project, this is a 5.1 acre site. It's zoned half-acre residential. It's on 1 and 3 Pembroke Road, right across from the Q and Stetson Place, Pembroke Road being Route 37. It's the site of a former dog kennel, sort of a retail use, and then another commercial building. Those were pre-existing non-conforming retail buildings that were in a residential zone. The site last year went through a zone change in which the site was rezoned from R40 to R20. Your commission probably saw that referral in front of you. And what we're coming forward with now is basically what we said we would do if the zone change was granted. This is a 9-house cluster development. Cluster developments, you guys don't get a lot of subdivision applications these days or cluster developments, but a cluster development is basically a subdivision that takes the houses, it doesn't give you more density. You still only allow the same amount of units, but it takes the units, pushes them together, limits the amount of road and driveway, and promotes the use of open space of the land. One of the requirements of open space of a cluster development, we do have city water, city sewer available. There are mains out in front of the site. The site will have 9 these are single family residences. They're detached, but they're all on one lot. So it's going to function more like a condominium development where the people will own their properties that their houses sit on, but everything else will be common ownership and use. The road that you see on the plans will not be a town road that the town will have to maintain. That'll be owned by the development. It'll look like a road for all intents and purposes, but it will not be a town road. It's technically a private driveway. Other amenities here include a swimming pool, pool house, and a sports court in the back. And that's some of the items that we're able to put in the open space area and this is for use of the residents of this development. There's also a cul-de-sac at the end, just to have a nice feature on the road, allow for people to turn around, and also some parking at the, in the pool area. The site will be improved with a stormwater management system. It's designed to meet and exceed city standards, also adding some water quality benefits. There are wetlands in the back of the property. The wetlands are along the portion of the property that border the Amber Room property to the back. And then there are wetlands across the street and on the property to the north of us. We're not directly impacting any wetlands. We received EIC approval earlier this summer for our regulated activities on this site. The Wetlands Commission did ask for some information that I'll present to you tonight that happened subsequent to the application being submitted. And I just basically an expanded landscape plan. They wanted more plantings. They wanted a sequencing plan, how the material is going to be removed from the site. And part of that sequencing plan also, for those of you, I don't know if any of you have walked the site, there's a few pieces of old machine equipment, farm equipment, and 1 or 2 car frames off in the woods on this property, and Wetlands wanted to make sure those were removed, and that will be done as part of this. This wasn't done by the applicant. He purchased the property, with these items on there. The other thing is the buildings there, the commercial buildings, have been demolished. Prior to the applicant purchasing the property, there was a fire at the kennel. The building needed to be taken down, and the applicant took the opportunity to take both buildings down at that time. The proposal, we do have some extensive rock removal. The site, one of the features of this site, there is a lot of ledge on the site and bedrock. We're taking out approximately 120,000 cubic yards of material in order to achieve the plan here. Another item that the Wetlands Commission asked for, they asked that there be no crushing or processing of material on site. And the applicant has agreed to that. So when the rock is excavated, it will be loaded and hauled off site. And any crushing and processing of the materials will be done at a proper facility. That will not happen on site. I think that's very important to the commission know that at this point. One of the biggest issues with the site, for those of you that are familiar with it, which I'm sure you all are, it sits on the inside of a curve when you're traveling north and south on Pembroke Road, Paden becoming Pembroke. So one of the features of this site that we really designed around was to make improvements, because there are some bad sight lines there right now, both for the existing driveways on the site, of which there are 2 existing driveways. There's one that's serving the old kennel, and then there's 100+ foot curb cut at the north end of the site. But also for vehicles not accessing the site, just people traveling up and down Route 37, when you look across the site on the east side of the road, you'll see that there's some topography that comes down. And this proposal, we're going to remove that. That's also for individuals coming out of Paden Aram. Say you're at the Q, and you come to that stop sign at the Paden Aram Pembroke intersection there. Looking to the left, we're going to be improving that sight line as well. I'm going to share my screen unless anyone has any questions at this point.
Anything for Ben before he shares the screen? Commission members, anything? All yours, Ben.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So basically, this is the same site plan that was submitted with the application. It's just colored so everyone can see it a little easier. The site itself has as I had mentioned, you can see the proposed driveway is far to the north. Trying to find my pen here. Bear with me. Whoops. Okay. Anyway, I can't find my pen, but I don't know why. I just was able to earlier. Oh boy. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to just continue on. As you can see, the proposed driveway is all the way at the north end of the site. What that allows us to do is shift the driveway as far away from the critical area at the south near the intersection. First of all, it gets as far away as we can from Payden Road intersection, and as far away for where we have some challenges with sightlines. It also provides us some ability to grade the road shoulder down there, install a sidewalk, and put a lawn there where you currently don't have that situation. Just to give a sense, can everyone see this picture now?
Yes.
The photo? Okay.
Oh,
No, we don't see a photo. We see a site plan.
Okay. Whoops. All right. Bear with me.
Now we see you.
Okay. I'm going to get the photo now. Can we see the photo now?
Now we
Yeah.
can. Yes. sir.
Okay. Everyone's familiar with this view.
Yes.
You're at Payden Aram. You're looking to the left. You can see the kennel sign, the old kennel building, the pink building there. See the shoulder there where the cars, and there's a challenge there looking across. We're taking the grade down in that area, and for a lot of the front of the site to improve this sight distance in that direction. Likewise, when you're traveling south on this picture, over to the left, you can see the shoulder there. We'll be taking that area down as well. And as you can see, the existing curb cut it almost encumbers the whole site. We're going to be reducing that to the driveway that's proposed. Next plan here is the grading plan. As you can see on the grading plan, we are proposing to remove a significant amount of material and lower the grades to the site in order to achieve it. We have a road grade of about 5% going up, so there will be an incline on the road to the cul-de-sac, and in the back you'll have the pool house, the swimming pool, the sports court. The entire site will be served by a swale system in the backyards and at the base of some of the ledge cuts that will drain and feed water to this detention system, stormwater management system in the front yard. From there, it'll be tied into the existing system on Route 37. We are reducing our drainage. We evaluated our drainage at 3 locations, at both catch basins in the road where we're discharging, and also toward the back of the site where a little bit of the site does drain to the east. We're proposing reductions in peak stormwater runoff at all locations and overall for the site. We do have a water quality system that we are installing as well. I want to get to the landscape plan is right here. This was done by Dean Pushlar. And as I had said, the EIC has asked us to, this wasn't the original plan that was submitted that you have in your package. If you were to compare this to the one you have in your package, you'll see that this has significantly more plantings throughout the site. EIC wanted to see a better tree canopy throughout the site. And in Ally's letter, which I'll go over later, but I'm going to talk about it now, Ally asked for some additional plantings along the front where we have the row of trees. As you can see, these trees are intentionally set back from the road because what we want between this row of trees and the sidewalk, like you see on most state highways, when the state does control the shoulder, we want a mowed lawn in that area. So again, for sightline distances through there. Ally's asked if we could put some more planting beds in between some of these trees, and that's something that we can do, and I'll talk to our landscape architect about that. But again, they're going to be sort of more in line with the trees and not in front of the trees, because as you know, once you have a planting bed and you let it grow for a few months, before you know it, could be 3-4 feet high. And then we defeated the whole purpose of improving the sight lines through there. The other plan that was asked of us by EIC, which you do not have in your package, I'll get this to Ally. EIC asked us how we were going to phase this, because as I mentioned, you know, there's going to be some material removed for the site, and the proposal is to do it in 3 phases. Obviously, I'm not going to go over every detail of it, but you know, you set up your erosion controls, you take down the trees you need to take down, and then the site is going to be phased. Basically, phase 1 being the westerly third, where, you know, one of the first things we do, we build our basin there. It could serve as a temporary detention basin. We get our drainage going to it, but we also want to start right away improving our sight lines, because we're going to have vehicle traffic in and out of this site. And we want to be able to improve the sight line there. We have the ability to store and stockpile material. We have a construction entrance. And then phase 2 and phase 3, you simply work your way into the site during the construction. The end result, when the site is built, it'll be a 9-lot cluster development. Again, not a subdivision, because this is all going to be on 1 lot. There's currently 3 lots, and obviously the lots need to be combined in order to achieve this. There is and you can see at the end of the cul-de-sac, there is a pool house. We have a contiguous sidewalk also leading from Route 37 into the site and back into the back into our sort of recreation and open space area, which will be a nice amenity for the owners and any guests that they may have. We have ample parking. One of Ally's comments was she asked us to show the parking at each house, and we'll do that. We only require 18 parking spaces for this development, 2 per house. But just to let you know, each house has a 2-car garage, and has the ability to park 2 cars in the driveway comfortably in front of the garage. So that's 9 times 4 is 36. And then we have 8 surface parking spaces, 5 at the cul-de-sac, and then 3 sort of between houses 2 and 3. So again, there's plenty of parking in this development for this development. A lot more than we need, but also we'd rather have people be able to park in the driveways and in parking spaces than park in the road, which again is not a road, it's a private driveway. Ally's other comment, well, I'm going to just go over Ally's. Well, actually, let me go through the other staff first. We have received comments from, I think, all but 3 departments, if I'm not mistaken. So we're still waiting on engineering. I think we're waiting on the fire marshal, and I feel like we're waiting. Oh, health department. I'm not sure what they're going to comment on with this, because their staff already reviewed this under EIC. But anyway, traffic, Vera Karakunda, he gave a clean letter. He says this project basically has no traffic impacts. And I think you'll see after the presentation I just made that we're actually providing some benefits to traffic, both for the site, for the area, and also as far as vehicle trips. We're estimating there's about 54 vehicle trips from this site. Compare that to the pre-existing potential retail use, which would be in the hundreds. So again, traffic's really not an issue on this site. The only issue with traffic is making sure that we improve and maintain those sight lines. Construction services, Rob Barone had a letter. He basically asked if we can make the apron concrete. I do have a concrete sidewalk there. He asked for the little sliver between the sidewalk and the road be concrete. This is a DOT road, so they ultimately issue the permit here. We'll let the DOT know that's what the city asked for. And if they're fine with it, we have no issues with putting a concrete apron there. And then his other comments were the sidewalks. He asked that they be to DOT standards. There are notes on the plans, and these sidewalks will be to DOT standards because they are on a state road. And then he wants no plantings in the grass shelf between the sidewalk and the road, and that's obviously for sightline purposes. We're going to keep, as I had mentioned, that area and the area to the east of it, we're going to keep that a mowed lawn, again, for sightline purposes. Ally had a letter dated September 17th, and I'm going to briefly go over it. The notes that she wanted, we will add those to the zoning table about the pre-existing uses being non-conforming and a variance granted in 1980. And again, that variance granted in 1980, we have no need to utilize that for this development, but we will add it to the plan for the record. Ray will handle comment 2, going over the geotech. We will revise the landscape plans to include the site distances. Site distances are currently shown on my site plan, but we'll add that to there as well. As well as Ally's parking requirements that she wants us to, as I show the driveways are 20 feet wide, she wants me to dimension that to show that we can get 2 parking spaces in there, which we definitely can. She wants to see if an emergency vehicle like a fire truck can navigate the cul-de-sac. It can. I will provide evidence proving that. But one more thing is, if you look at this site plan, you'll see on the cul-de-sac, on the inside circle that's green, I'm showing there's no curbing on the inside. So that just makes the cul-de-sac that much more easy to navigate. The fire truck doesn't need that, but if you did have a vehicle that had happened to go over they wouldn't hit a curve on the inside of that turn there. That's just flush. She wants the easements to be added to the landscape plan. We can do that. As I mentioned, we are going to have city water and city sewer mains coming into the site. But if you look carefully at the landscape plan, you'll see that our landscape architect worked with me to make sure that the trees, he kept his utility layer on to show where the piping is, that we're not on top of any water or sewer mains or services with respect to the plantings. Let's see. The last comment, let's say comment 5. Oh, it has to do adding notes with respect to the wetlands approval, and also that the management of the stormwater system, the ledge, be the responsibility of the developer and or ultimately the condominium association. We will add those notes or conditions to the plan. That's not an issue. Comment 6 is a standard comment. Oh, the one thing I didn't show you were the, let's see here. Shoot. Can everyone still see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't include, I'm sorry, I didn't mention that our architect, Jameson Associates, had prepared the elevations, because this is as I said, this isn't a subdivision where the houses get built later. This is a cluster development site plan application. So part of the requirement is to show the elevations. So the houses are pretty straightforward. They're, as I mentioned, they're all single family houses. They are 2 stories. So that's they're 30 by 50. That's 3,000 square feet. Then if you take out the 500 square foot garage, it's 2,500 square feet of living space plus a 500 square foot garage. And the houses are all, they're all similar houses. They have decks in the back. Pretty straightforward. So I'm going to pass it over to Ray unless anyone has any comments of me at this point.
Any questions for Ben at this point? Bob, go ahead.
Ben, is there any retaining walls on the southeast or north side way in the back there? Or is that what's that gray kind of line all the way around?
Oh. Yes, Bob, that is it's a 4-to-1 ledge cut, 4 vertical to 1 horizontal. So that's where our ledge cut will be. So there are no proposed retaining walls. I'll let Ray touch on that. In the event we find an area that it doesn't work, it would have to be replaced with a wall or supplemented. I'll let Ray touch on that. But yes, that's a ledge cut basically surrounding the north, south, and west and east sides of the development, because you could see the topography of the site from the survey right here. Although it's flat in the front, it climbs up quite a bit in elevation to the sort of the eastern 1/3 of the site there.
Okay,
But yes, that's a ledge cut. That's not a retaining wall as proposed, Bob.
okay.
And I'll use that as a segue. So for the record, my name is Ray Gennaro, licensed professional engineer, principal at Down to Earth Consulting, office located in 27 Seaman Company Drive, Watertown, Connecticut.
Ray, I'm going to stop. Do you want me to keep this up or get it off?
Please, I was just about to ask you. Yeah, if you could leave that up, that'd be
Yep.
great. And I'll actually start off by answering the commissioner's question there. So as Ben identified, right? So we have sightline issues, and we want to level out, right, the frontage on this lot. And we could see here, this is essentially a pretty long, slender lot, right? So by flattening out and pushing that grade towards the back, and as Ben pointed out, right, topographically, it elevates quite a bit. So that's going to necessitate a pretty good size rock cut. And that's what you see there, basically at the perimeter at the rear of the site. And that rock cut ranges in grade from like 0 up to, at its maximum point, 50 feet high. So as Ben also pointed out, right, a significant amount of rock excavation will be required to accommodate the proposed development and to account for these proposed rock slopes. And essentially, that's why the applicant brought us on, because like we have incorporated many other projects in the greater Danbury area. And again, I may be biased, but the look of a natural organic rock cut would be, in my opinion, more favorable compared to a type of retaining wall feature like a modular block wall or whatnot. And so in doing that, there are certain design considerations that need to be applied. And so Ben and I have worked kind of back and forth. That's how he was able to incorporate that 4:1 rock cut that's shown here. One of the things that is identified in the drawings and Ben kind of discussed is he referred to it as a perimeter swale at the toe of the rock cut. I'm referring it to as a dedicated rock catchment area. So the beauty in using it as both, and I see Ben laughing, is that we're essentially allowing for more open space on this parcel, right? So Ben, that rock catchment area is going to also serve as for Ben's drainage area, but for us, and there was one of the questions that Ms. Smith put out there, is that rock weathers. That's how we get soil. And so the rock will fall off that slope and be contained within this dedicated rock catchment area. And as part of that, there is a maintenance obligation, right, to clear out this material as it builds up. And that will be incorporated, whether in the HOA or the developer's requirements, whoever essentially is responsible for maintenance for this parcel will also have an additional responsibility for maintaining the rock catchment areas. So that's essentially where we got, what you're seeing here on this plan. One of the other things I will discuss is rock is variable. And really, those conditions don't reveal themselves until construction, until we start excavating this rock. And so in coordination with Ben, that's why you see that we have a lot of room to the north, south, and in the rear there to, if we do need to make a modification to the rock catchment area, as opposed to the 12-foot width that is shown on these plans, we can easily do that without needing to really change anything of substance on these plans. And so that was something that I had stressed to Ben to make sure that with what is shown on the drawing here on the site plan, we could easily do that. So and it may be 12 feet to 15 feet, not 12 feet to 30 or 40, for example. And again, that's going to be based on the conditions as they reveal themselves. So how do we get here, right? As Ben pointed out, we got quite a bit of rock, 120,000 cubic yards. And it's going to essentially be our responsibility to provide recommendations for the design and construction of this this excavated area, such that the rock excavation is done in accordance with prevailing standards of care and all applicable safety standards. And part of that process, I'll go through it briefly. So commissioners may be aware that prior to any rock excavation blasting activities, the blasting subcontractor needs to pull a permit with the fire marshal. Standard of practice, all towns and cities. We like to take it a step further. And part of that process is us working with the blasting subcontractor. One, making sure that a qualified blasting subcontractor is retained, right? One, obviously it's licensed, but also can provide relevant project experience for a project of this magnitude. They will develop a blasting plan that will be provided to the fire marshal when they're trying to pull their blasting permit. And that blasting plan will actually be reviewed by us first prior to submission to the fire marshal. And, comments will be made and we will make sure that they are applied to the blasting plan before submission to the fire marshal. And so during rock excavation activities for this site, there's three major quality control procedures that are going to be utilized for this project. The first one is prior to any rock excavation activities, a pre-blast condition survey will be offered to the owners of the parcels within a 500-foot radius of this project. This is a radius that the fire marshal and us have agreed to on prior projects in Danbury. And again, it's typically we see 200, 300 feet, but again, just demonstrating how we are going further and incorporating any parcels, any structures within 500 feet of blasting activities. And basically that process, it gives the owner the opportunity to allow a third-party engineer to review the existing structures, photos, videos of the existing structure. And the objective is to obtain a baseline survey, if you will, of the structures. Many times we include water supply wells. We also, with the local health district, we look and see who has, for example, septic systems that may fall within their radius. Ben did mention that this parcel is serviced by city water and city sewer. So I would imagine it'd be less of a concern in that case regarding the wells and the septics, but it's still part of the process, and incorporating that into the condition surveys. And so after that is done, then we recommend, thank you, Ben. We recommend that the retained blasting subcontractor performs a test blast in an isolated site area. And when that is done, we, after an area is selected, we basically, set up, detonate a charge, and we collect data that we use during production blasting. And that generally consists of us setting up seismographs 50, 100, 150, 200 feet away from the test blast area. And as you can imagine, we use that data to have a better handle as to, okay, during production blasting, do we have any sensitive areas based on the data, neighboring structures that we particularly want to make sure that we monitor during production blasting? And during production blasting, the third leg of the stool, if you will, is that the blasting subcontractor is generally required to monitor for overblast pressures and vibrations as part of their liability insurance requirements. We always recommend to the owner to also retain a third party engineering firm to do independently to monitor vibrations as well, to again ensure that rock is being removed, again, in accordance with prevailing standards of care and all applicable safety standards. So with that, I guess I'll open it up for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Gennaro at this time, commission members? I don't see any, Ray, so I guess we're okay. If I can't see on my screen, if you could, unless you need that diagram up there still, if you take that away, then I can see everybody.
Yeah,
Mr.
I'll take it off, Chairman. I just
Mr.
wanted to show this because Ray was discussing the 500 feet.
Understood. Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Maybe Ben, if you could put up the other one.
Sure.
What I'm looking for is I'd like to see can you kind of show us where the rock is? I mean, does it go all the way to the road, and like what area will be where the rock will be removed?
Sure, Bob. Let me get back to that drawing. I think the best,
Whatever drawing is best to show that.
you know what I'm going to show you right here? I'm going to show you my drainage area maps, only because I think it encompasses what Ray called as a catchment area and I called as a swale. It does both. But if you look at the drainage area map here, everyone can see this right now on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So the rock excavation is basically going to be the majority of the area where you see, let's start at the courts. That area is definitely going to be excavated, as will the swimming pool, the clubhouse, the cul-de-sac, and definitely houses 3 through 9 and the road from there. The detention basin itself will also be excavated, where you see the detention basin. Because when you go to the site, if you look at the topography, like just to get a sense of where the kennel is now is roughly going to overlap, or when I say where the kennel is now, where the kennel's slab is now, the former kennel, that is where the detention basin's going, and we are lowering the grade there. So I would say probably 2/3 of the site, Bob, we will have rock excavation on.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's and that's why we got Ray involved on this.
Yeah. And I'll further add, so a majority of the rock excavation will occur towards the rear of the site, where the amenities area is, and again, that further from neighboring parcels along Pembroke there. So, and the other thing I'll add, Ben mentioned the detention basin. I saw a lot of beautiful trees in the amenities area of the rear, so we may have to do some additional rock excavation
To
just
put
to
some
keep
soil,
those trees
soil
alive.
down. Yes.
Yeah. Trees don't like to grow on rock. So,
No,
so yes, to answer the commissioner's question.
And
Basically,
how
where-
high, how high of a rock are you gonna remove? So like,
Yep.
when you're going in, is it like 50 feet? Is it more?
I can answer that, Bob.
Yeah, 50 feet at its max.
Yes.
Yep.
So when you come in, you can see the color plan here. It's sort of easier to read. Let me get some of the faces out of the way here. There we go. So if you're looking here with the color plan, houses 1, 2, 3, you're not going to have ledge cuts exposed there. starting to the left here, right where the property jogs, you'll have a 0 to 2 or 3 foot ledge cut along there. But then as you go toward the back, sort of due north of the swimming pool, it's probably about 35 feet. And all the way at the northeast corner, it's about 40 in the back.
Yep, 40, 45, yep.
And then along the southern one, just to the south of the pool, you're probably 45 to 50 in that area.
That's the max cut height right
Yeah,
there.
that's the max right there. And then if you look at the cul-de-sac, sort of that corner that the cul-de-sac's in, the cuts in there range from 25 to 28 feet, and then again going down to 0 at the detention basin. And I do want to just keep in mind, we're starting our cuts not on the property line. We're starting them 20 feet from the property line. And we do have a safety fence on top of it, which is pretty typical on a project like this. So again, there is some flexibility in this with respect to that, mainly at the bottom. And then at the bottom, when Ray described the catchment area, the easiest way to describe it is you have the rock cut like this, the catchment area. It's like when you see on the side of a highway. In the event you do get a rock that pops out during a freeze thaw cycle, it hits the catchment and it bounces back or up and doesn't keep rolling. And that's the purpose. It also functions as a good drainage swale as well. And as I had mentioned, the end result that you're going to see on the site, you'll see the rock faces from the cuts, but it's not going to look like the surface of the moon when you're walking on it, because we do plan on over excavating the rock and being able to bring in some soil so we can get some trees and some plantings, and that was something that the EIC really pushed for, and that we are doing that here.
Yeah, and I'll further add, this area of Danbury here, it's the parent bedrock is a granitic gneiss, very competent rock. And it also has, because it has a high potassium feldspar component, it's kind of white and pink, and it's a really nice looking, no pun intended, rock. So I feel pretty good given the amount of exposure, if you will, the rock cut, and the max height of 50 feet. At the end of the day, you're going to have something that's pretty aesthetically pleasing. Again, versus, a concrete type of retaining structure.
Okay, and so when you're back there, you're just gonna see a total solid rock wall all the way up, right? Is it gonna be pretty level, or is it gonna be slanted at all, or it depends on how it's cut?
It's going to depend on how it breaks as
Yeah,
well.
okay.
Yeah. So fortunately, with the anticipated cuts, they're not too deep where we would require to pop these in 2 lifts. So be able to do it in 1 lift. And again, the applicant's very aware of how nitpicky I can be as the rock is being excavated. The rock slope is being revealed, and what final clearing measures that we would require in order to ensure that rock slope is safe and stable at the time of construction. As Ben pointed out, right, over time, freeze thaw, that rock will weather, and again, material will accumulate within the rock catchment area. But it is a bit of a process in order to get it done right. And again, I've worked with the applicant on many projects where rock excavation and the creation of rock slopes are required. So I'm feeling pretty good about this.
And there's no netting or any type of grading on the rock to help hold it, and it's just a catchment area.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because that's a comment that we get a lot. So the problem, let me back up a little bit. So as Ben was developing these drawings, I'm looking at the USGS published mapping, and I can tell you the orientation. So the strength of a rock slope is not dictated by its intact rock properties. It's dictated by the joints that are within that rock mass, if you will, right? Slabs falling, wedges falling. And looking at the mapping, we have the foliations of the rock slope are basically orientated in a north-south direction, dipping pretty steeply towards that'd be the west there, all right? So very competent rock mass, favorable jointing as well. So in some instances where we have tight site constraints, someone mentioned a car dealership earlier on, and they want to park these fancy Mercedes alongside a rock slope. Sometimes we do recommend some type of netting on that rock slope. I am very much against netting, especially given this application. Why? Because it increases the maintenance requirements, right? So if a nugget does come loose, it's just going to hang overhead within the netting. Then the developer needs to retain a qualified contractor to go up there to undo the netting, remove the fallen material, and reconstruct the netting. As you can imagine, that rarely gets done, right? So the nuggets just keep hanging over there and really creating a safety hazard. It's also for this reason that the DOT rarely implements this type of technology because of the maintenance headache and the requirements over time. So instead of doing that, and given the fact that we do have all this open space in the back, our preference would be to construct this dedicated rock catchment area. And again, as Ben pointed out, that rock catchment area, which is going to be designed in accordance with DOT standards, will be designed in order to catch any of that fallen rock, any of that fallen material, in order to again, retain that material, not prevent a safety hazard or a potential hazard to structures, to property.
Thank you.
No, it's a good question. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Any other questions for Ray Gennaro at this time? Okay, Ben, anything else? You're muted, Ben. I can't hear you.
No, I think Ray touched on everything. I hope we answered every question with respect to the site and the ledge, but just, one thing, as you're aware, anytime you have slopes that exceed 2-to-1 in Danbury, the regulations require that they be evaluated by a competent professional engineer, or a retaining wall be designed by a professional engineer. That's a condition on almost every project we do here. And, we knew this from the get-go on this project that we would have ledge. The applicant has done some test pits on the site, very shallow ledge everywhere. And, we discussed it, and it was imperative that we retain Ray prior to site development plans being done, as opposed to just assuming some things and then hiring him when we're getting our building permits, if this project is so approved. So we felt it important to bring Ray on as early as possible on this project, which we've done. And I think it was the right thing, and I think we got it. We have a plan that works. It works with the zoning. It doesn't require any variances. And it achieved a lot of the issues that I know the zoning commission wanted when they rezoned this property, as far as the type of development they want to see on this road. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Ben.
Yep.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else in favor? Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in opposition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? I see a hand up with a Deborah Kennedy, but there's no You're muted and there's no video, so I don't know if that's, there you are. Okay, can you unmute yourself and just give your name and address for the record? Again, Deborah Kennedy, I see a hand up, but I can't hear anything. You were muted, now you're unmuted. I'm sorry, I still can't hear anything.
She's muted.
There she is.
You'll have to unmute yourself. My apologies, Ms. Kennedy, we can't hear you.
She's unmuted now, but for some reason we can't hear her.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, we'll go to Mr. I see another hand up, a Ken Gucker. We'll go to him, and then Ms. Kennedy will try to come back to you if you could sort that out. So, Mr. Gucker, go ahead.
My name is Ken Gucker. I reside at 89 Padenham Road, and I am outside the 500-foot perimeter that we're talking about with this project. But I wanted to give you some background as to somebody who's lived at this location for 38 years and was the unfortunate victim of the work that was done at the development of Stetson Place. Stetson Place, being that it is across the street from this project, is about 3,000 feet, 2,200, 3,000 feet from where I live. Now, as we listen to the experts and the engineers talk, and I'm not doubting or belittling them with their knowledge, I just want to be able to talk about the physical experiences that I have had. I would be well outside the range of any effect that would happen with both Stetson Place when it was being built, but then also outside the range of this project. I can tell you with certainty that as Stetson Place was being developed, every day at 11:30, I would hear a whoosh and a thud, to a point that if anybody is familiar with an oil burner that does not ignite properly, and then when it finally ignites, it does this whooshing sound. I thought I had an oil burner issue. Until one day I was working in my garage on my car, and this very noise happened, and I realized my oil burner wasn't running. What was happening was it was timed with the blasting that was happening at Stetson Place. This area has quite the ground rock, quite the ledge. I have a piece of ledge that actually sticks up inside of the crawl space of my house when it was built in 1966. As a result of that project, and it took many, many years afterwards, I have water problems in the basement. I have cracks in my floors. Being a contractor, I hand made every single door frame in my house because I wanted to upgrade. After that project was done, every door is crooked, and to this day, I still can't get things sorted out. But the idea of 500 feet is enough, though it may work in the books, I don't think it works in reality. Now, I'm not thinking that I will have too much to go on here as far as this project, but my concerns are for the people at Stetson Place, which I believe half of their project may be within this 500 foot, and then the other neighbors around it. Because again, myself, where I live, 2,200, 3,000 feet away, I wound up having much damage that only arose much later when that project was done. Now, getting back to this project, I have grave concerns with a number of things. Number one, the amount of material to be removed. I have walked on the neighbor's property. Mr. Sean Kennedy was kind enough and his wife, Deborah, who's trying to speak, and I guess her phone isn't allowing her. I was able to look over at what's actually in there. You know, and in living in this area for many years and knowing the previous owner with the dog kennel and walking up there with their permission when they lived there, you know, because they had old vehicles and things, and they would show them off. The rock outcroppings are tremendous. Now, I was not able to go down to City Hall to review the plans, and I've tried to look at them on the packet that was emailed to me, but sadly, the scans are poor at best. You cannot really look at elevation marks and things of that sort because they're just kind of fuzzy and unlegible. But I'm looking at 66 feet or more of rock ledges that are going to be taken out because I think your highest point here is about 570 from what I can denote from the maps, which I know this area because I went out and looked at it. And you're basically going down to a baseline, you know, give or take around 500 feet, 505, 500 feet. That is quite a large amount of rock. And I know when Stetson Place was being built, they were drilling and blasting over there for years to get what they had. So my concern there with the amount of material being moved, what are we looking at here? I also question, and I know it's within the guidelines, but I question really the idea of cluster development. Cluster development, when it was derived, was a method of preserving the environment. In other words, if you had, say, a 20-acre lot and you had single acre RA40 zoning, you would, instead of bulldozing the entire lot down to put 20 individual houses, you would make a deal and say, look, we're going to put them closer together to preserve the environment. Well, what's happening here is we're not preserving any environment. We are removing everything within 20 feet of the lines, except for where the wetlands are. You're going to stay in that one corner about 100 feet away. And then kind of reintroducing grass and other things. It's not really, in my opinion, the intent of what a cluster development was designed to do. But that's what we have here. You know, so once we blast down, you know, the 60 feet or so down, it is obvious if you're putting a swimming pool there, you're going to go another, you know, 20 feet or so even farther down. So we're really going down, you know, if we're looking at 50, we're looking at 70 feet to get that in. You know, and that pool area and those other recreation areas are really eating into a lot of that open space preservation area. Third, I would be concerned about and get very concerned when things are left up to homeowners associations to be reliant upon doing maintenance and other things to preserve and protect or to maintain the areas that the engineers have designed. I have dealt with many homeowner associations, and I can tell you 9 times out of 10, as well-meaning as they are not really trained into doing or understanding what is really involved. I have gone and looked at other condominium projects and other homeowner association projects to go look at their systems to find like retention basins with 36-inch diameter trees growing into the middle of them and everything else, because again, they don't really truly understand the gravity that is really involved in these maintenance. I'm further concerned with, now that we're going to have this, basically this cliff face that will be developed, that it's going to be up to the homeowners association to do maintenance. And I'm wondering what would be the financial burden of said failure or said maintenance that would be having to go along with something of this type. A lot of times, you know, the developers will do the site, they will put together a maintenance plan, but again, sadly, a lot of times those plans don't really generate down to the people that fill those positions. So I have concerns there as to anything that requires a homeowners association to do maintenance, if that maintenance would actually be done. And then fourth, if there's any kind of failure rate or anything that the homeowners association has to deal with, we're basically building this thing like a horseshoe into the side of the mountain. So what do the surrounding property owners look at as far as what could be possibilities to them? You know, 20 feet is not a lot when you're talking from a property line to where this rock face would be, to where, let's say, Mr. Kennedy or even or Jeffries or any of those other places that now will be looking down on this project because they will be basically having a cliff at their side property lines. if those rock faces were to fail or shift, what would it cause to their properties? So again, my concerns are more about what goes on afterwards. I'm not, criticizing the developer here, but I also know when I used to run multi-million-dollar construction jobs, and I've had to deal with such things like this, things do arise that aren't planned for. But then again, what are we looking at later? Does opening up this amount of stonework open up, water? Does it open up water tributaries? I know I live in the watershed, and when my neighbor put his house in, it, springs popped up and underground springs popped up. Is that something we deal with frost and heaves and things? So again, I would urge the commission to really take a hard look at this. I would also urge that you increase the diameter of the 500 foot. And lastly, I would urge that whatever this project is, that the surrounding homeowners are left financially harmless to where they don't have to hire engineers or others to do surveys to ensure that their property is left undamaged. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gucker. I'll tell you what, Ms. Kennedy, we have to leave this public hearing open anyway. We're not in a position to close it. So why don't, next meeting, we're going to reopen this public hearing. And if you sort out those technical difficulties, we'll be happy to hear what you have to say. Sorry about that. It just isn't coming through. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone else in opposition? Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Okay, Ally, I think we're waiting for some things here. I think we're waiting for engineering. I think we're waiting for the fire marshal. Could you just give me a quick summary of the departments we're waiting to hear from?
Yes, so as you mentioned, engineering, we're also awaiting health, as Ben mentioned earlier. They did already review it through EIC, but it's just a bit of a belt and suspenders approach with the grading now for it. That's what they'll be reviewing. And then fire marshal, and part of that fire marshal review will include the blasting, and they're gonna take serious concern with everything that was mentioned here tonight and follow through with their normal review process when it comes to the blasting.
Okay. Thanks, Ally. So commission members, as you've heard, as we await reports from various city departments, we're not in a position to close the public hearing. So unless there's any other questions for the applicant, I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is October 3rd, 2024.
Mr. Commissioner, this is Ray Jarrett, Down to Earth. Would I have an opportunity to respond to Mr. Gucker?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep
And again,
the hearing open, but go right ahead. That might
Yeah, no, and just fairness to him, because he's obviously expressed some real concerns here. He kept referencing a project nearby. I had no involvement with this project. I'm not familiar with what transpired in that project. Regarding the 500-foot setback distance for doing the survey. So let me explain the process a little more. So, and as I previously mentioned, the standard practice 200, 300 feet. The city of Danbury Fire Marshal had asked us on prior projects to increase that to 500 feet. And again, I understand Mr. Gucker's concern, but I want to also remind him and the commissioners as well, is that when we're doing the vibration monitoring, we are putting these seismographs essentially along the property line. And they would intercept, and it's a dynamic process, right? Because the blasting operations move, right, as they're working through the site. And we move that seismograph to basically intercept any construction-induced vibrations from that blast to a sensitive structure. And for lack of a better term, that's any structure, any neighboring structure that may have any impact associated with the blasting operations. So if that seismograph, and again, the test blast will kind of give us a heads up as to what to expect. If that seismograph is telling us, oh, wait, at the property line, we are encountering vibration levels that may cause structural damage and or overblast pressures that may cause disturbance or damage, then operations cease at that point, right? So, and that's at the property line, not 500 feet away, not 1,000, 2,000 feet away. The other thing I'll mention too is that the human body is very perceptible. And again, I'm not trying to discount Mr. Zucker's experiences on this prior project. I have no involvement, not sure. And I have no reason not to believe what he's saying. But on prior projects, we've had, residents express concerns because the human body can perceive vibrations on the order 0.01, 0.02, 0.03 inches per second, where they could feel the vibrations. For example, many people felt the vibrations imposed by the earthquake that we had not that long ago that emanated from New Jersey. However, it didn't cause damage to many of these structures. Where they start causing actual damage to structures is an order of magnitude higher. For sensitive structures, we've done blasting near old churches and historic structures. We have to limit those as a safety precaution 0.5 inches per second. And really that is below the threshold at which structural damage is actually occurring. And how do we know this? Because the U.S. Bureau of Mines has done extensive research on blasting and impacts on structure. So, so with that said, this entire program, and the reason why the applicant retained us, is to provide that third-party oversight to again make sure that, because the applicant doesn't want to cause damage to neighboring parcels as a part of this development, right? And so that's why we were retained to again make sure prevailing standards of care, all applicable safety standards are being followed during the rock excavation. One other thing Mr. Gucker mentioned regarding the HOA, and again, I don't know at the end of the day who's going to be responsible for the maintenance. I can tell him and the commission that when the HOA is responsible for, and I can't talk about detention basins and overgrowth, and I can only talk about the rock slope. It's a maintenance plan that I develop on my prior projects that gets incorporated into HOA bylaws. And again, I don't know if an HOA is going to be set up for this project. I'll leave that to Ben. He may know, or the applicant. It's a legal filing. Gets incorporated in the HOA. And the first line item is Ray Gennaro with my cell phone number, such that any questions, any issues, any concerns, go straight to my cell phone number. And part of that maintenance plan, it's typically an annual program where a qualified PE such as myself would go out there and take a look at the rock catchment area, take a look at the slope, identify any potential hazards, and report our findings to the HOA for them to address. So it's been very effective on prior projects where the HOA is involved, because again, this isn't just an overgrown detention basin, right? We're talking about human life and property, so we definitely have to elevate that to a different standard. So I believe I touched on Mr. Gucker's questions, concerns, and we'll definitely I'll get his address from the minutes and see how best to incorporate his parcel and to address any of these issues prior to construction, how we can incorporate that into the conditions assessment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gennaro, for that. I think it was very helpful, and I like the degree to which your firm and the applicant are taking responsibility for this issue. So thank you for adding that. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ben, go ahead.
Just want to add one more comment that I failed to mention, and only because Ken brought it up. We're not in the Paid and Aram watershed here. we're south of it. So we're not subject to any of the reservoir and overlay zone requirements with respect to that. Our water drains to the brook, which is downstream of the reservoir. And the other thing, I had mentioned the fire truck being able to navigate the cul-de-sac. We are extending a water main onto the site, and there will be a fire hydrant up near the end of the cul-de-sac as well. I
Yeah.
forgot to mention that.
Thank you for that, Ben.
You're welcome.
Thank you for clarifying that as well. Just two quick things before I ask for a motion to continue the public hearing. I think I said our next meeting is October 3rd. Correction, is actually October 16th. I think October 3rd is a Jewish holiday, so we will not be having a meeting on that night, but we will have the next meeting on October 16th. My apologies. Secondly, to Ms. Kennedy, who wanted to speak, I just wanted to make sure you knew this was available. You're welcome to call planning and zoning and send an email to them with your concerns, and we will be sure to address them at our next meeting. I know there was a technical glitch, but the planning and zoning department phone number, 203-797-4525. I'm not sure which staff member would email, but if you call that number, ask for planning and zoning and say, who would I send an email to about a planning commission application? They will certainly give you that email address. That might be an easier way to go. Okay, with that said, commission members, unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion to continue until our October 16th meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
motion to continue this public hearing until the October 16th meeting?
thank you, Mr. Sylvain. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Hosstetter. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This matter will be continued until October 16th. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
for that
Thanks, Ray.
information. Talk to you then. Okay, commission members, looking at our agenda, we have nothing under continuation of public hearings. We took care of our referrals. There's nothing under correspondence. There's some new business that you could take a look at and some for reference only as well. So unless there is anything else, Mr. Kiokio.
I was just looking at the agenda, for reference only, the Riedel Dito.
Riedel Beal, yes.
Is that a zoning?
Public hearing for October 2nd. Riedel Deedle, application for special acceptance site plan approval for sale of automobiles, Grenadier.
Is that a planning commission special exception, or is that a zoning?
Yes, it
Is
is
it-
going to be to planning commission. I think it's just a typo in the agenda that we didn't catch, so I apologize for that.
Oh, so that'll be the 16th?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Another typo.
Good.
Sorry, guys.
Good catch there, Mr. Kiokio. Okay, anything else, commission members? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Kevin. Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Have a good evening.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Good
Good
night,
job.
everybody.
Good night.
Yeah, right.